Welcome back to the Vandy Sports Podcast. Alongside Joey Dwyer, I'm Billy Derrick, as we are here to recap Vanderbilt's 27-24 loss to the Texas Longhorns. Vanderbilt falls to 5-3 on the season, 2-2 in the SEC. Texas improves to 7-1 and 2-1, 3-1 in the SEC. Correct. I got to get those right. But either way, tonight, Joey, Texas proved that they are a very good team, obviously. We knew that coming in, but I think we saw the separation of the talent a little bit. And Vanderbilt lost by 3, right, as we get Chris Lee in here as well. Guys, Vanderbilt lost by 3 points. And, of course, the late touchdown there was, I don't want to say garbage time because they still had the onside kick. But Joey, I'll start with you. Just your initial thoughts, and you hit on the reality of the status of where Vanderbilt is. What's your feeling after this one?
I mean, nothing changed in my mind. I think they're still a pretty freaking good team, and they played a team that was better than them, and they were going to have to shock the country to do it today, and they didn't shock the country, but I still thought they put on a better performance than a lot of people would have thought, and I think they're still a good team. I still think they're capable of competing with teams like this, and if they played a better game today, I think they could have gone and beat Texas, which is crazy to say, but they turned it over 3 times. They just didn't have their best defensively. I thought there were some breaks in coverage, especially early in the game. But, man, even with that, they were in the game, and Diego Pavia didn't play his best game, and Chris and I talked about this after the game, but him not playing his best game and them being in this game with a top 5 team and a team that's probably a little bit better than a top 5 team, I think tells you that maybe they can compete next year as well. If they get a even competent transfer quarterback, they can be a team that competes. And you got to give your hats off to Diego Pavia tonight. Didn't play his best game, turned it over a few times, but fought through some injury and stayed in the game and gave him a chance late. Obviously, the onside kick didn't go their way, but, man, I don't think this program is about moral victories anymore, but if you're looking to find one, it's tonight. But I think it's huge that they aren't taking moral victories. The crowd was really good tonight. They were in it with a top 5 team for a lot of the game, and they're still pissed off that they lost. And that's such a huge thing for this program, because last year you would have looked at it and they lost by 20 to Georgia, and they were basically throwing a championship parade. This year, talking about no more victories, they all came in here expecting to win, and I think that just kind of is a testament to what they're doing right now. And, man, them being in this game and not even being really excited about being in this game is such a huge thing to me.
Yeah, Chris, we've got to change our thinking. And I think people at Vanderbilt, there's a lot of Vanderbilt fans that have, whether it's on our board or people we talk to, that have changed their thinking and believed even coming into this one that Vanderbilt had a chance to win. I think most people around the country did. But I think tonight was maybe a bigger theme, and I know Vanderbilt fans don't want to hear this, but I think they're still a top 25 team. I told you that after the game. We saw some losses from teams in front of them, as opposed to going negatively and saying, well, you still lost to Texas. This was Texas. I mean, They might be playing the national title at the end of the season. I think Vanderbilt proved that they're at that level. I mean, they lost by 3, and so I think we learned a lot about this team. Maybe we'll learn some about Texas too. We'll see what they do the rest of the season, Chris. But I mean, like Joey said, this team is really good.
If you can excuse me for a multi-minute filibuster, because I've probably got to hit the road, but there were a lot of thoughts going through my head. I think first thing is, like, I've covered a lot of games, and there were a lot of, okay, this is the first time it's felt like this moments. The Alabama game was like, whoa. The way they followed that up with Kentucky, the opener against Virginia Tech. I think to me, this is the first time I've ever covered a loss like this. Like, usually if you're in a game with a top 5 team in your Vandy, that's a good moment. Everybody kind of takes some consolation. I just kind of walked out of here tonight like, that was really disappointing. I mean, the mood at the press conference was really somber, really, really somber. And, of course, their season's not over, but I've never covered one. I mean, Clark Lee's demeanor has changed so much this year. That kind of even-keel demeanor he had, win or lose. And this year it was like, tonight it was like, I'm disappointed we lost. It was heartbreaking. I mean, Diego Pavia took a few minutes to get there. You knew it was hard for him to face the media, and he was great as he always was. But I think that's number one. I think the bigger thing I take away, that was a loss. But there's been a lot of me in the back of my head that's going, okay, I've seen some one-off seasons here and there. I saw the one-off bowl game in, what was it, 08 or whenever, where they were 7-6. I had a good 7-6 season. I saw Franklin's 2 teams that hit the top 25. And I still think sustainability has been a big thing in my head. In other words, like, are we covering this great one-off season, and then it's back to 2-10 in misery? And in my head, I think that you don't want to say it because, like, we've had a great season to cover. It's been fun. You don't want to be that guy. But in the back of my head, it's been like, okay, a lot of this depends on Diego Pavia, right? And when this is over this year, can they go find another one? And I think he's a one of one. Now, they might be able to find somebody different that have got some different skills and things. But I think, to me, for the first time tonight, ironically in a loss when everybody walked up feeling bad about it, I felt like maybe the first time, like, okay, now you've seen them win these games. You've seen them come within a field goal at Missouri. You saw them lose to a Texas team that could be the best team in the country. I thought tonight, even though it was a loss, for the first time I go, okay, Pavia didn't play well. The defense had some lapses early. They turned it over 3 times. They still had a shot if they get the kickoff to win the game. It feels like maybe they are walking into something that's sustainable. Now, I think administratively, they got a lot of work to do. I don't think their NIL setup is particularly well thought out or very good. I have a lot of questions about that. We won't get into the details, but you guys know kind of what I know. I think administratively there's some questions there too. But I think in terms of Clarkley putting out a plan, and by the way, how many recruits were here tonight that are coveted? A lot of them. And, yeah, the crowd was probably 60% Texas, but the Vanderbilt fans were good. I mean, a year ago this would have been 80% Texas. The students were great. It finally feels like some – and again, they don't take anything good out of losing tonight. They felt like they were going to win the game, and I believe them. But tonight is the first time all year that I've thought,
they belong.
I felt like they'd proved they belong, but you just don't know.
Well, this is the best team they've played so far.
Well, we don't walk out of here going they're cute little Vandy.
Right.
I don't think the fans think that anymore. I don't feel like Texas really thought that about them, and I feel like maybe there's a chance to repeat. And I don't think they'll be this good next year. I think finding a Pavia is going to be tough. But you saw that, okay, tonight the defense stepped up when they played badly early. They got a pass rush. That changed the second half. A lot of those guys have got a chance to be back. It just felt to me like, okay, there's some seeds and some things where they can take what they're starting to do this year and maybe lock it in for success in the next year or two.
Yeah, I know you got to probably get going here, Chris, but I like that you mentioned, obviously this team revolves around Diego Pavia. I think we can all agree. But the defense, I thought, in the fourth quarter gave the offense a chance to win. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I feel confident in saying that. I said that in the headline on Twitter that the defense just kind of gave it back to them, and the offense struggled. And that's probably the best defense in the country if we're looking at it with Texas. But, guys, it's not just Pavia in the offense, and I think that's what people are now starting to learn. After Alabama, maybe there was still some thought of, okay, well, Pavia magic, maybe that was a fluke. But, I mean, it wasn't a fluke. That game wasn't a fluke, obviously. But
Billy, let me just interrupt you before I go.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had said they turn it over 3 times, Pavia has his worst passing day, they never really busted big plays on the ground, you're just like, okay, they probably lose this one 41-10.
Mm-hmm.
It was a field goal game at the end. Yeah. That to me, and I know they don't want to hear it, they're not taking a moral victory, but to me that points to, I think they're getting this to a place where with the right things off the field, this is something that they might be able to build on in a meaningful way, rather than be the one-off it always is, where they go back to being miserable again. And, oh, by the way, how good was Randall Fontenette tonight?
Really good.
Yeah.
Really good. Well, Chris, I know you got to get going. Thanks for checking in.
Thanks. It's going to be an interesting rest of the season as we're doing this. Peyton Thorne's already thrown a pick for Auburn tonight, and Kentucky scored, I think, off that pick, not on the pick. But big game next week, and watch the mood around both locker rooms because they've got to get over this. They've got to flush this and move on, and we've seen them having trouble with that. Coming into Georgia State and Ball State. Now, those were different circumstances, but I do really wonder, looking ahead a little bit, how's Auburn feeling going into next week if if Kentucky knocks them off.
That's a good point. They did it last year in New Mexico State, that is. So that's Chris Lee. Of course, big thanks to him. He's got to head over to his live show. Joey, I want to feed off of what Chris was talking about with the sustainability, but there's still a lot of other stuff I want to get into tonight. But there was national media members everywhere in the press box.
Right.
The feeling was different. The Alabama game was the feeling going into it. I know C.J. Taylor called it and said that people are going to be surprised by the outcome. But today was another level of different where, Chris talked about the visitors on campus and Texas fans walking out of here. I heard from a few, Vandy's good. But Vandy's good. They would almost, talk about how, man, that's disappointing. We lost, or we won by 3 against Vanderbilt.
Not this year.
No, it's different. Vanderbilt's good. And, I don't want to contradict myself in saying that I feel better about this. It feels weird saying that, but I mean, I almost do. I'm still trying to process how I feel about this team. Usually Sunday's a better day for that, but I do in a way feel better about this team. I think there's a chance they're still ranked in the top 25, and I don't want to be Mr. Sunshine and Rainbows here, but you were playing a pretty good team tonight, and that's kind of some of my thought.
And it wasn't, like Chris said, it wasn't cute little Vanderbilt. This was a resume builder. This was probably Texas's best win analytically, right? Michigan was probably their best win going into tonight. Vandy is their best win. Isn't that crazy to say?
That's wild.
And the biggest loss that Vanderbilt took tonight is that they're probably eliminated from college football playoff contention. Who would have thought that Vanderbilt would be in college football playoff contention in week 9?
Yeah.
Right? Who would have ever thought that Texas would have
Missouri's a team that probably got eliminated tonight.
Right.
Vandy's in that echelon.
And Missouri's been ranked all year.
Right.
And they've had their quarterback hurt. Vanderbilt has found a way to stay in the fight through 9 weeks of college football playoff contention. It's just unbelievable. And that's been their goal. Mm-hmm. It's not like they're just there. That's what they've been aiming for, and they're disappointed that that's no longer on the table for them. That's a crazy thing to say. And the odds are still favorable that they're going to make a bowl game. They're probably going to make a pretty decent bowl game. There's odds in their favor they could go win a few more SEC games and get to 7 or 8 wins. I mean, there's still so much ahead of this team, and I think tonight tells you, I mean, there's still so much ahead of this team, right? You look at Texas, probably a team that in the 4-team playoff last year would have been in. And Vandy stayed with them. Vandy made things difficult on them. They turned them over a few times, and Vanderbilt certainly didn't play its best game. It hasn't played its best game in the last 3 weeks, and they're 2-1 in those games, and one of those games includes Kentucky on the road. So Vanderbilt is a much, much different team than we thought they were, and they're a much, much different team than everyone else even thought they were this week. They're a much better team than that. They're not little cute Vanderbilt anymore. This was the most SEC Vanderbilt's campus has ever felt to me today.
Yeah.
You drive in and you see the horns down flags, you see the Pavia for Heisman flags. That's the SEC, and I don't know if I've ever seen that at Vanderbilt. It was still largely a Texas crowd, but as Chris mentioned last year, it's probably 80% Texas fans. Today I would say it was about 60, and it wasn't like a noticeable decibel difference. It felt like Vanderbilt was still loud when they scored. Mm-hmm. The fan base knows these players now. They love these players. It's not like people are just going to go because it's the SEC football team in town. They want to see Texas. They know who Diego Pavia is. They know who Eli Stowers is. They know who Randon Fontenette is. This is a team that the city has embraced, the country has embraced, and I wouldn't have been shocked if they shocked the country again tonight. I mean, that's just what this team is made of, and like we've said all along, they're really, really good. Now, did they play their best game tonight? No. They had a lot go wrong. They had the 3 turnovers. One of them, that 4th and 2 call, I'm not sure I really agreed with, deep in their own territory, but I mean, they still almost got a stop there. Texas was the more undisciplined team. Vanderbilt scored all their points almost off of turnovers. They drove it down when you thought the game was over and gave themselves a chance. They were far from perfect, and we'll talk more about that. But, again, they proved tonight, really, really good team. And I don't think anybody is arguing that at this point, which is just unbelievable to say in Week 9, considering what we saw in fall camp. And we weren't making that up. Diego Pavia had a so-so camp, and we know the reasons for that more now. Maybe he's more of a gamer than anything else. He definitely is. Eli Stowers didn't have a great camp. But this team, even like 3 months ago, we never, ever would have thought would look like this. And they have proven everybody wrong. And I think, like we said last week, they're America's best underdog story right now.
I want to get to a few big moments in the game, Joey, because we have gone a little big picture here, and we'll hit a lot.
We've gone 14
This
minutes
is
of
like
big picture.
this is a midweek podcast right here.
Yeah.
But I do want to get to the game. I think the game deserves some discussion.
Really?
First off, I thought Texas bucked a trend tonight. Anytime Vanderbilt's gotten off to a fast start, they have. I don't want to sit here and say they've won the game, but it's looked good. And you could probably go back and say, okay, fast start, Vanderbilt won the game, right?
Can I say a word on that? Top 5 team gonna top 5 team, and that's what we saw tonight.
That's what I was getting at. Texas bucked. No, you're fine. Texas bucked that trend, and I said that I believed that going into the game. I thought if Vanderbilt gets off to a fast start, they've got a chance, and they did have a chance. I'm not, but still. Texas just negated that lightning quickly. I mean, Texas is really, really good. Yeah. They might be the best team in the country. I know Georgia beat them. You've got Oregon. But, man, they're good. I mean, they are very good. And they bucked that trend. Vanderbilt got up 7-0. They got a defensive stop to start the game. And, I think that tells you that, the offense doesn't have to have the ball. For this team, this is a unit. Again, this is a team. They play very good team complementary football. And so, but getting at that, you get the defensive stop, you go up 7-0. Texas right away scores 7-7. And the catch, the one-handed catch from, was it Golden?
Matthew.
No, that was Matthew Golden, the first touchdown. And then DeAndre Moore had the next two in a row. But they go up 14-7 after that, and then 21-7, and it was looking a little too easy for Texas. I knew Vanderbilt would make adjustments defensively, Joey, but I just wanted to get that out there. That shows how elite Texas is. Vanderbilt's not elite. No. They're a really good team. They're not elite. And we probably knew that, going in. But hot take, Vanderbilt's close to being elite. You lost to Texas by 2. And I know you go back to the Georgia State loss, of course. They've got 3 losses. And there's probably some other 3-loss teams that aren't anywhere close to being elite. But Vanderbilt's also played probably the top 5 toughest schedules in the country, one of them. So I don't think Vanderbilt is as far behind Texas as a lot of the country might think after tonight. And maybe they don't. That was a 3-point loss. And, you mentioned after the game for public relations, that was a good last touchdown there, and they got the onside, but Texas bucked that trend of Vanderbilt starting fast. I thought that was very noticeable, and then early on, I thought the first quarter was huge in this game, and you saw that turn, and you just didn't have a great feeling about the result. Now Vanderbilt clawed back, and credit to them, but the 4th and 1, that was a bad call.
Yeah, it was a bad call. Yeah.
It was a bad call. That call is almost never made. Quincy Skinner was not involved in the play. He was at the bottom of the screen if you go back and watch it, and his shoulders were not turned the right way. That's never called. I can't remember that ever being called. They called it illegal formation, but that was the explanation. But that was a huge play, huge conversion. I'm not saying Vanderbilt's going to score. Maybe Texas' defense holds them, but I thought momentum-wise they needed that to hold, and it didn't. I thought that was big. Pavia's interception, the first one, I thought was, again, flipped it, and I know they turned Quinn Ewers over a couple of times with his interceptions, but Texas, they did a better job of using their turnovers. Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt, never mind on that. So I might even cut that out. No, I'm kidding. But I say that Texas just showed how much better they were. Long story short. Yeah. But again, they bucked the trend, and I didn't think that was necessarily possible. But Texas is elite, so.
Yeah, the thing I came away tonight with, one of many things, is Texas is a better team than Vanderbilt. And when it was 21-7, I was like, man, this game's over. Vanderbilt's out of it. It might be the Kirk Herbstreit prediction where it's 52-10, something along those lines. It's never easy with this team, though. It's never easy when they're playing a team worse than them, but it's also never easy in a game like that where you think they're completely out of it. They fight back. Their mental makeup is just tremendous. So I want to talk about the offense a little bit. I thought they really struggled. Still scored 24 points, though. I thought they really capitalized off turnovers, 14 points off turnovers. They were 2 for 2 in the red zone, which I think is 3 for 3, actually, in the red zone, which is a big thing. Eli Stowers didn't have his best game, but Junior Sherrill stepped up. I thought he made some really nice catches, especially that one in the end zone. Diego Pavia had 2 magical touchdowns tonight, but I thought Texas really took away the run game, and that really hindered Vanderbilt, especially with Pavia being a little banged up throughout the night. I think he's, like we said last week, such a huge part of their offense, especially with his legs. I think he's a huge part of their offense, so it wasn't great. I thought they were, what was this at, 392 to 266 yards or something. Texas was far more productive offensively, but Pavia and Vanderbilt still found a way to stay in the game. And Quincy Skinner, I didn't think had his #1 game of all time. Cole Spence wasn't really involved. Eli Stowers wasn't super involved. And the running game just wasn't exactly what you thought it would be, although they had 114 yards. But Vanderbilt stayed in the game behind that offense, and I think that's just a huge testament to what they have. And, I mean, they scored 24 points against the best defense in the country. That's not something to write home about, but it's also not something to be disappointed in. That's a good defense that Vanderbilt looked competent against, and I gave them, a C- on the day. But you're also putting in a little bit of curve there, right? Because that might be the best defense in the country. So a lot to like offensively. If you're looking at it with a little bit of a squint for Vanderbilt, a lot to like. But overall, the 3 turnovers killed them. Clarkley talked about how they're not in the business of turning it over, and that just killed them throughout the night. But they were the more disciplined team in terms of penalties, and maybe even got some bad luck on those turnovers. They did get some good luck on the Nate Johnson throw, though. I mean, I think that kind of shows you what we saw throughout fall camp. That was kind of a microcosm of what we saw throughout fall camp. He made a really nice run, made a really bad read that almost cost them, and then made a really nice throw to Eli Stowers down the seam.
Yeah.
That's the Nate Johnson experience, I think. Yeah. And the Vanderbilt experience tonight wasn't what you normally get, but it still was good enough to put him in the game.
Yeah, I'll get to the defense here, and we'll probably wrap up with some final thoughts. Obviously, you look at the stats, Joey. Texas had 392 total yards, 288 through the air, 104 rushing. I thought, yeah, they did get gashed a couple times. I thought on certain plays and certain possessions, Vanderbilt tightened up on the interior and was able to stop the run. But you're getting a text. Defensively, I thought the fourth quarter might have been their best quarter defensively of the season against an offense that is still really good, I think. Now, I think maybe there's some issues Texas has to figure out offensively, and maybe they're not as good offensively as we all might have thought, but they're still really good, still got a lot of talent. They were missing Isaiah Bond, and even on defense they were missing Makuba, but the first half was not good defensively. Probably their worst half of the season. But for them to make the adjustments necessary and tighten up, again, I mean, Joey, that first half, after watching that first half, probably some people around the country, general observers, that sat there and said, man, this could get ugly here in the second half. Texas is doing whatever they want on offense. But to get that field goal late before the half, I thought gave momentum, to the offense. Even though they started the second half with 2 3-and-outs on offense, the defense had more of the momentum. The defense carried the way, maybe not the entire second half, but I mean, they forced another interception on Quinn Ewers that created a score and huge sacks. So they did lead the way, actually. And Nick Rinaldi came up big tonight. Fontenette and Capers. I mean, how big was that to get Capers back tonight? Fontenette and Capers combined on a big sack. And then they combined, Fontenette tipped a pass. Capers ended up catching it, which was a really good catch, by the way, which led to that touchdown. I just thought for the first time this season, the defense did enough, but the offense didn't. Mm-hmm. And, again, this is maybe the best defense in the country they were facing tonight in Texas. Mm-hmm. So there's no shame or harm in that. I'm not sitting here ripping the offense. But they believe they could have done better. Diego Pavia said that starts with me on offense. And so, again, the defense tried to hand it off. They tried to, bring as much momentum as possible to the offense, but they just couldn't get over that Texas hump, that great defense for Texas. So, but I think there's some encouraging signs defensively. This defense, I think, Joey, each game a little bit has gotten better. They make plays. A lot like the offense, they're opportunistic. They make enough plays. They'll give up their yardage. They bend, but they don't break. They give up. They hold to a field goal. Or they'll get a late sack, when a team's about to score and force, a crazy turnover you just don't expect to happen. This defense is opportunistic, and you never know when they're going to make a play. So, again, I thought the defense was fine tonight. I gave them a B-. I was thinking C, maybe C plus, but I ended up giving them a B minus because they kept them in the game.
Why'd you end up giving them a B minus?
I trusted your intellect.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's high intellect.
Yes, it is. But no, Joey, I thought the defense did enough for the offense to go out and win it. They just couldn't, and that was the opposite of the Georgia State game. Georgia State, the offense did enough to come back in the game, but the defense didn't have hold their end of the bargain. So it's rare to say that one side of the ball doesn't hold up their end of the bargain with this team. I mean, they've been able to play good enough complementary football for 5 wins, but not able to tonight. Final score 27-24. Texas. Up next for Vanderbilt is a trip to the Plains at Auburn. I think Auburn's getting killed by Kentucky right now, and that's obviously a game Vanderbilt should win. We'll talk about that one next week. But Joey, I'll leave it to you for any final thoughts on tonight's game and your perception of this program.
Yeah, I mean, Vanderbilt showed tonight that it belongs in the SEC, and it also showed that if it's going to belong, it's going to have to start winning some games against teams like this, and that's not going to be super easy for it. There's always going to be that pesky top half of the league, especially nowadays. I want to talk a little bit more about the defense. My story tonight about the defense is they did their part.
Yep.
They kept Vanderbilt in this game, and I don't know that I've been able to say that throughout a lot of the year that they were the better unit, and they were tonight. Brandon Fontenette, I thought, might have been the best player on the field at times. He is an NFL player and has really unlocked that by coming here. If he wants to go somewhere else next year, he's going to have a lot of offers to do so, but I think he probably is a guy who wants to stay as well. So that's a big thing. I thought Corday Sidnor made a huge play, getting off the edge there and getting that sack. Rinaldi's really stepped up, a sack in 4 straight games. Longwell led the team in tackles tonight, which I think is just such a huge deal. And I just think their defense is a lot more capable, and I think getting Langston Patterson back was a huge thing as well. He's around the ball a lot early, and Brandon Fontenette, the story of the night was just around the ball over and over and over again. And a guy who I thought wasn't terrible tonight as a freshman was Jalen Lackey. He had to step up. Colby Taylor was probable for the game. I came out in pads, I think, before the game. I was interested that he didn't play. Probably should have asked about that. But
Martell Height as well had a big he had the pick there, and then had a big pass breakup too back here in the end zone.
Yeah, so I think the depth on defense is something we've talked about for years almost, especially with the defensive line. It's never really showed up. It's starting to show up a little bit, though. They're getting banged up a little bit, and their guys are starting to step up and come in and make plays, especially at linebacker. Prince Colley not being on the field is just dumb.
Cowan really either.
Yeah, right. Those are 2 good players that aren't on the field, and Vanderbilt is just markedly better defensively. I thought for the first half their defense looked like it looked last year, and they were just able to find ways to get pressure on the quarterback tonight, and they were able to turn them over. So Vanderbilt loses this game, but I think I feel pretty good about where they're at heading into Auburn. Maybe I'll jinx them, but I'm going to predict a win for next week, and we'll see where it goes from here. But I am really interested to see if they're ranked tomorrow, because I think they probably deserve to be, but I'm just not sure that that's kind of how the voters are going to skew. But it's going to be an interesting week for Vanderbilt, see how they respond to this, but I don't think they have a whole lot of reason to hang their heads coming out of the night.
A couple more things from me. This should have been the 2:30 ABC game.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's kind of irrelevant at this point, but I mean, Alabama beat Missouri 34-0. And I know maybe the networks didn't know Cook was going to be out and Nate Noel, but be better. I mean, like seriously, hopefully, maybe it was today. Maybe the obviously the Alabama win wasn't enough to. Mm-hmm. I mean, this should have been a primetime game, and it was on the SEC network, and I'm sure the ratings were great. The early slate there and the early afternoon slate wasn't great, but it came down to the wire. I think people should start noticing, and I think Vanderbilt should still be ranked. There was a Navy loss, to Notre Dame by 30, I think it was. So that will bump Navy out. And UNLV lost. They were receiving votes. Yeah. So I don't see a reason why Vanderbilt shouldn't still be ranked. And I saw from Chris Lowe tonight, he tweeted out, Vanderbilt should move up, maybe even in the rankings. And I know that might be a little too far, but I mean, I can see it. I can see why somebody would say that after a game like that. And again, it was just fun today. I mean, I know Vanderbilt lost, but it's starting to feel different. And I thought Chris made a really good point about the sustainability. That's what we've always wondered about with Vanderbilt. But the roots are deep with the coaches. I'll be interested to see in the offseason. Obviously there's a lot more to get to, but Vanderbilt made a maybe inadvertent statement tonight. I think in a weird way. I know they're not thinking about it that way. They're very disappointed. They're crushed. But they'll have a chance to bounce back against a pretty bad Auburn team. I mean, quite frankly. So it'll be Vanderbilt and Auburn next weekend. Joey will be there, so stay tuned for his coverage. I don't think I'll be able to make it, but we'll still be covering Vanderbilt football, and we'll have all kinds of pieces out on vandysports.com. Vanderbilt loses 27-24 to Texas. That's Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Vandy Sports Podcast.